Generally speaking, the Soviets plan for a defensive phase here. This is what the Germans call it, Citadella. We'll have two operations, Operation Kutuzov, Operation Rumiantsev, one against the Oriol salient in the north against 2nd Panzer Army, one's down here against the forces that have launched the southern arm of the Kursk attack. And then we'll also launch, and these aren't planned in as much detail, Operation Suvorov. Each one of these is an operation, and each one of these has a date and a name attached to it, and each one of these is planned either in detail or in outline prior to the 5th of July when the Germans launch Citadella. All of this, as we'll see at the end, will in fact occur. And as a matter of fact, it will occur and then be expanded upon to the point where you see this dotted line, which is the ultimate Soviet objective. That dotted line is back here by the time we get to the end of July and the German Battle of Kursk is over. Okay, a few things about the Soviet defense. It is a defense in depth, perhaps one of the most imposing defenses in history. This isn't going to show it very well, and really you can almost squint your eyes, because what I want you to see here are the number of distinct defensive belts. You see here the Central Front in the north, the Voronezh Front in the south. You have Corps defensive belts, Army defensive belts, front-forward defensive belts, front-rear defensive belts. This goes back to a depth of 200 kilometers, and most of these belts are manned with troop units on the ground. It is an anti-tank defense, and a defense tremendously strong in artillery. I'm not going to show you some of these things for time's sake, but this one will show you the northern half of the bulge. Each one of those little circles, which you can't see the number in, is a division. A Soviet rifle division numbering about 7,500 to 8,000 men. Some of the secondary sectors perhaps a little smaller. If you see these little symbols, each one of those symbols is an anti-tank strong point. An anti-tank strong point usually has a company of infantry, several anti-tank weapons, a field gun, or sometimes a tank or a self-propelled gun. It will also have in it sappers with shape charges. Several of those anti-tank strong points together will be an anti-tank region. That is the way those things are woven together. Every division creates them, every regiment creates them, and they're created all the way up to corps level. Formidable anti-tank. Then you have artillery. This is the artillery fire plan, the distribution of artillery units. If you could see it, you would see all the artillery units, and you would see the boxes of pre-planned concentration fires assigned to each along the anticipated advance axes of German panzer forces, because by this time the Soviets well know how the Germans operate. They've been murdered by them enough times to know. And it goes all the way down to this one. This is a graphic for the use of multiple rocket launchers, Katyushas. Those rail-mounted rockets, some of them truck-mounted, that fire volleys of 7, 8, 10, 14 waves of rockets. These are all woven in. You'll see the boxes there, pre-planned fire areas. I'll tell you, in anti-tank defense at Kursk, you will see some sectors where multiple rocket launchers located behind first echelon divisions on main attack axes of the Germans are ordered to lower their ramps and fire over open sights on German tanks as they come over ridge lines. You can imagine the surprise of a tanker in SS Panzer Corps to see these things. They weren't very accurate, but they made one hell of a fire show. And to have a whole volley fired at you, direct fire, will probably not do much damage, but probably have some effect on your morale. I'm not going to show you the graphics for the rest of the thing, because essentially the entire Kursk salient is so fortified. I do want to show you this, because this is going to contradict, and I won't, again, I know you can't see it, so I'm just going to go ahead and talk about it. This is a maneuver plan for tank forces at the operational level, separate tank brigades and separate tank corps at the Battle of Kursk. Now, most people know the Soviets have tank armies at Kursk. First Tank Army in the south, Second Tank Army in the north, and at the Battle of Prokhorovka, up comes General Rotmistrov's 5th Guards Tank Army. 3 full corps, almost 900 tanks. They also had tank corps with 250 to 250 tanks each, and separate tank brigades. And there is a whole story of the Battle of Kursk that has been forgotten, that essentially undercuts this business of grinding your way through a Soviet positional defense. And that is this: from the very outset, here are the German attack axes, here and to the north. And if you see these circles right here, you can't, but believe me, I'll read them to you. One is 2nd Guards Tank Corps, and one is 5th Guards Tank Corps. There are several smaller circles that are separate tank brigades. And the missions of these brigades and corps is to constantly maneuver around the flanks of the advancing German Panzer spearhead and strike it on the flanks over and over again incessantly. Because one of the weaknesses of the Germans is in infantry. By this time of the war, they simply don't have enough Lancers to go around. And if you strike 2nd SS Panzer Corps as it's heading north, with its 3 divisions abreast, they're going to have no choice but to turn around one of those divisions, Totenkopf is the one, and say, okay, protect our flank against this attacking German Soviet tank force. The same thing will happen to every single main German axis of advance. And it's these tank corps, the 2nd Guards tank, 5th Guards tank. You'll see about day 5 of the battle a 2nd Tank Corps appear. That's also a separate tank corps. The 10th Tank Corps will appear. That's a separate tank corps. And the same thing will happen up in the north to a lesser extent. That is the real story of Kursk. The real reason why those 2 armored spearheads, 48th Panzer Corps and 2nd SS Panzer Corps, are stopped. One is stopped cold, 48th Panzer Corps, is because of that constant nibbling along the flanks that erodes their strength, combined with a tremendous amount of anti-tank forces laid in their path. And we'll see these as the battles develop. The same thing on the case of 2nd SS Panzer Corps. It does get deeper, but by the time it gets deep, it's a shadow of its former self. I want to show you something else, and this is a book out of, I think it tells 2 stories. One's an intelligence story and one is a deception story, but I'm not going to spend much time on it, so I'm just going to show you one graphic. If those of you who have read Bronstein's Lost Victories, I'm sure everyone has. I read it when I was a teenager. This is a map out of Lost Victories, written in 1958. This is a that's awful. But if you look at it, there's a laydown of Soviet forces. It's a nice and neat laydown. You can see the numbers of the armies there. The Germans miss 7 armies. 7 armies are not there on this map that were there. And this is the deception story. This is the intelligence story. By 1943, one of the most fatal problems that the German Wehrmacht has beginning to surface with a vengeance, and that is the inability to detect operational and strategic reserves when the Soviets bring them up. That had been a problem in 41. That's why the Germans, in consternation, would destroy 5 armies and then look out across the river and see 4 more lined up. They did it over and over again. They never knew the armies were going to be lined up because they'd assumed them all away in their Barbarossa plan. This happens in 1942. And it will happen again in 1943 and at Kursk, and it will happen all the way to war's end until we get to 1945, when in many of the operations, the Soviets are able to cover up, conceal half of their attacking forces, 6 out of 12 armies in large bridgeheads in some instances. Let me put that in clearer form. Here's a graphic I put together that shows you precisely which armies Manstein didn't know was there. Again, this is a little bit clearer. This also spells another thing for you, and that is the definition of the Battle of Kursk. To a German, this is Kursk. It starts on 5 July, when the Germans attack, and it ends on 12 or 13 July, when the Battle of Prokhorovka is over. That is Kursk to the Germans. That is it. It is a week. This is Kursk to the Soviets. It begins on 5 July. The first phase ends on the 12th of July, when the Germans stop. It continues with the offensive up here and the offensive down, and this is on 12 July, this is on 5 August, and it spreads down here to 13 August and further north to 27th August. The Battle of Kursk for a Russian, begins on 5 July and ends on 28th August with the fall of Kharkov to the Soviets. This is why you have a problem in numbers when you see Soviet accounts of Kursk and German accounts of Kursk. The Soviets count all the tanks, 8,000 of them on the entire front. whereas the Germans are calculating a much smaller number in this area. But that's neither here nor there. That, if you count them, there are 7 armies there that Manstein does not know are there. When the commander of 2nd SS Panzer Corps, General Hauser, says, I want to continue after the Battle of Prokhorovka. I have 195 tanks and I want to continue. And I've knocked out over half of 5th Guards tank armies. They've only got 390 left. And I want to continue and I can beat them and I can go deep to Voronezh. He doesn't know what's out here. 3 armies, a full mechanized corps with 240 tanks, a full tank corps with 220 tanks, all waiting in the wings. And of course, all these are up here too. These are getting ready to go over to the offensive against German forces at Oriel. So there is a major intelligence problem here for the Germans. Numbers and figures are chilling. And I've got a whole stack of numbers and figures charts. Frankly, I don't think we need them because you probably can't read the numbers anyway. But what I'm going to do is show you what we have. We have the composition of every single German division and corps throughout each day of the Battle of Kursk. We know what they're equipped with, what models, how many they lose of each model, blap, 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 blap. There is a book out there you ought to buy if you haven't bought it already. It is a book by Valery Zamulin. He's a director of research at the Kursk Museum. He's been fired. If you read the book, you'll understand why. It came out about 3 years ago as The Myths of Prokhorovka. It is now out, published by Helion Press. Demolishing a Myth is its title. It's a beautifully done book. The press has bet their existence on this book selling. It is an A#1 translation, and it's got all these numbers and figures, and they're better than the ones I have because they're even more current. So if you want a good book on the Battle of Prokhorovka and its context, Valery Zamulin's book, Demolishing the Myth. Numbers. I'm just going to throw a couple of these up. Yeah, I guess we can read those, but I'm not going to spend much time on it. Just to know what scope we're getting with. This is the Central Front. There are the armies of the Central Front, 2nd Tank Army. Notice the strength. Geez, I can't even read it myself. 510,000 men. 1,607 tanks and self-propelled guns. That's roughly half of the Soviet force at Kursk, okay? That's half of the Soviet force. The Voronezh front, 625,000 men, 1,704 tanks. You see them divided down by armies. The point here is that it's a lot of people and that we do know what the numbers are today. And that's basically all you need to take away. The Germans, reinforcements that go into Voronezh front, another 915,000 by the 15th of July. Grand total 1.6 million men committed to this battle, a force of roughly 5,035 tanks. That's a lot of folks, a lot of armor. Germans, 431,000 in Army Group Center, 1,014 tanks. We'll do a quickie on Army Group South. 349,000, 1,500 tanks, net total 780,000. You can do the math. 1.6 million Soviets, roughly 780,000. It's about 2 to 1. The Germans are attacking with a 2 to 1 superior enemy to start with. The tank force also roughly 2 to 1 superior. The Germans are gambling on technology. They're gambling on their new Panthers, their new Ferdinands, and their new Tigers to do marvelous things in the battlefield when in the hands of an accomplished Soviet Panzer leader. I've got correlations of forces up to you-know-what. Let me just show you a couple, this one broad number here, to give you an idea of what the Germans are dealing with here. I didn't even mention the steppe front. That's extra. That's back there. And it's sitting around waiting to do the counteroffensive phase. The totals at Kursk, Soviet, a little over 1 million, German 567,000. The correlations you see, 2.0 to 1. Tanks, just a little bit under 2.0 to 1. So you know it's not a battle with the Germans. Now the Germans have very seldom gone into a major operation in this war with superiority. They did in Barbarossa for a variety of reasons, but they didn't in 1942, and they certainly wouldn't in 1943. Any questions on numbers? I'm going to show you only one other mind-numbing slide of numbers, and that'll be the battlefield at Prokhorovka, so you can understand exactly what's being committed at any given time there. Now, The battle in the north, I'm going to go through this quickly because the battle in the north is an attrition battle. It is an attrition battle on both sides. For the first time in the history of the war, the German Panzer units, 2 Panzer Corps, do not break through the tactical depths of the defense. They can't do it. They'll get about 6 or 7 kilometers deep before they're mired down in an endless war of attrition against anti-tanks and tanks and guns and rocket launchers and you name it. In the south, Prokhorovka, in the south, the southern half of the Bulge, the Germans will get into the operational depths. They'll get about 20 kilometers deep, but realize that in no campaign prior to 1943 did the Wehrmacht get stopped short of the strategic depths. Never did they get stopped short of the strategic depths. So this is very, very much new for operations on the Eastern Front, Germany's Eastern Front. Here's a laydown. Let me see how these look on this. If you notice, the blue is the German start point. You probably can't read the numbers here, but these are infantry divisions. Panzer Division, Panzer Division, Panzer Division, Panzer Division. They generally put 1 Panzer or 2 Panzers forward to kick off in the front lines. And then they'd follow. Again, shortage of infantry. Always a shortage of infantry by this stage of the war. The Soviet defenses, rifle corps in 2 echelons with 2 divisions up, 1 back. The divisions themselves with 2 regiments up, 1 back. The armies themselves with 2 corps up, 1 back. And lurking in the rear, Soviet 2nd Tank Army with 2 tank corps, each made up of 3 tank and 1 motorized rifle brigades, and 2 separate tank corps, the 19th and the 9th in the mix back there. A lot of forces, and the commander of the Central Front will decide to commit all of those forces to the positional battle. In other words, the orders that go out to General Romanenko's 2nd Tank Army are go into combat in support of the infantry, engage the tanks head to head, and fight them to a stop. If necessary, dig your tanks in, and he will do just that. Therefore, you'll see this turn into, and I'll show it to you day by day. This is 2200 hours on the 4th of July, the day before the attack. The attack begins on the 5th. You can see the German advance beginning to make inroads here on the axes of the 2 Panzer Corps. Generally speaking, the German Panzer divisions go forward. The Soviets essentially eat up their lead rifle divisions trying to absorb the Panzer attacks, relying heavily on those anti-tank regions I showed you, and tremendous mutual support between the various elements and the guns in those regions. When necessary, when they break through the 1st Division, they'll send in the leading separate tank regiments, usually with heavy tanks, to go in to simply support the infantry. And then on the heels of that, they'll send in light, medium, or heavy self-propelled artillery pieces. These are not artillery. These are direct fire, heavy guns mounted on T-34 tank chassis that charge into bust bunkers and smash advancing infantry formations and tanks. These things will meet head-to-head in the battlefield in a virtual slugfest with heavy losses to both sides. And then you'll see the separate tank corps going in, a brigade by a brigade, roughly 49 tanks per brigade. The brigade's broken down into companies. And finally, 2nd Tank Army with its 2 tank corps, the 16th and the 9th, they will go in, the 3rd and the 16th, they will go in with their brigades, 6 of the tank brigades committed with the motorized rifle forces. Didn't have trucks, they rode on the tanks, they provided the infantry support. So that's the way this battle will develop, and you'll see it doesn't develop very deep and it doesn't develop very fast, but it is very intense and very bloody in specific sectors where these forces meet. To give you an idea of how this worked, well, this is the 6th of July. There are 2 places, a little village called Samodorovka right here, another one over here called Ponyary Station, number 1. Ponyary Station being a station on the railroad line that's associated with Ponyary State Farm. Both of those areas will become focal points for combat, and they'll exchange hands 6-7 times each over the course of 3 or 4 days as each side commits more forces into combat. Give you a blow-up. This is a blow-up of the 15th Rifle Division. You can see its regiments deployed up this way, 3 forward, 2 forward, 1 back. Battalions arrayed the same way. This is the lead regiment. The other 2 regiments are back here. There's another rifle division back here. And I'll just show you the way this thing develops in this particular case. This is about a 5-kilometer front we're looking at. Actually, it's a 1-kilometer front. You can see the scale right here. But you can see the general envelopment with German tanks by these units. They fight their way out in between the tank pinzers. You'll then be getting support from the 2nd Echelon Regiment. A lot of individual small unit stuff going on the ground in what is a very, very intense combat. This is 1800 hours 5 July to 0600 hours overnight on the 6th of July. You'll see the Soviets extract what's left of those units back. These units are designed to do nothing more than cause attrition in the German units, to slow them down, to cause casualties, cause damage, disrupt their formation. And once they're disrupted, of course, then they'll run into the next Soviet division, which will do the same thing. And as the disruption to the Germans increases, new Soviet armor will come in, self-propelled gun units, tank regiments, tank brigades, and all of the cumulative effect of all of that is to erode down the German strength. This is the 7th of July. Now we're into 3 days of combat. We're about ready now to have the tank corps committed into combat and support. This is Ponyuri Station. This is Samodurovka that I was showing to you a moment ago. We have a blow-up. We can do Ponyuri Station pretty well. This is 0600 hours in the 7th. It's a sector held by the 307th Rifle Division, backed up to the rear by 2 Guards Airborne Divisions, the 3rd and the 4th. You can see the regiments, 2 forward, 1 back, self-propelled artillery, anti-tank reserves, all sorts of things. You can't read them on this map the way it's configured, but these are the sorts of heavy weapons that are committed on a time-sequenced basis to support those infantry as they absorb the German blow. And in this case, we're dealing with essentially 18th Panzer Division advancing in 2 Kampfgruppen. Kampfgruppen, 1 formed around its Panzer Grenadiers, its motorized infantry, and 1 other around its armor. And basically, if you just look at the arrows, you'll get the idea of what's going on. First, the commitment of the 2nd Echelon Regiment of that division, fielding forward of the next Guards Airborne Division, getting ready. It's progressive commitment into the area of fresh forces, each force designed to further erode the German strength. This is the 8th of July. You can see the extent to which they've moved roughly from here to here. And that's about 8 kilometers. Not much. It's certainly not an operational breakthrough by any means. And you can see, if you could see it, you see the 2 tank armies now beginning to position their corps to go into combat, to add that final heavy crushing weight against the German spearheads to bring them to a stop. Again, situation 8 July. Here goes the 3rd Guards Airborne Division in. 4th Guards Airborne Division is getting ready to go. The entire battle has encompassed about a 3-square-kilometer area around Ponyuri Station, and by now, after 3 days of fighting, it is a graveyard of wrecked vehicles, smashed tanks, guns, artillery pieces, bodies, you name it. It's just a god-awful mess. The effect is, of course, to bring the Germans to a grinding, screeching halt. This is the final stage on the 9th of July. The commitment to the 3rd Guards Airborne, back out of reserve again. 4th Guards Airborne going back into 307th is already out now. And by this time, the Germans are utterly sapped. They've had to commit the 10th Panzer Grenadier to try to bolster the 18th Panzer. It doesn't have the energy to go any further. The situation on the 11th, the 10th of July, you can see the line basically stabilizes. It's not going very far. And I'll show you the 12th of July. The same thing. By this time, the Germans are down to 1 Panzer Division. It's back here. It's the 12th Panzer. It has not been committed yet. Model, the Army commander, is keeping it in reserve. And at this point, this is 2,200 hours. 16 hours before, all hell had broken loose to the north. The entire 2nd Panzer Army up here in the Oriel salient, attacked by 2 Soviet fronts, 8 armies, the 4th Tank Army, several separate tank corps, and within a day, 3rd Guards Tank Army, all go after 2nd Panzer Army. The warning flags go up. There are huge penetrations in the Germans' front. Model receives the order, send me 12th Panzer immediately, and whatever else you can get from down here. He has to essentially take everything he can extract from this battlefield. Mind you, it's the 12th, noontime on the 12th of July, and send it north to stave off impending disaster at Oriol. Bear this in mind when we look at the southern half of the Kursk Bulge and you get to the date of Prokhorovka, which is the 12th of July, and you ask yourself, were German commanders really sincere really accurate when they said, oh, if you just let us go further on the 13th, in light of what's happening here and what's happening to the north. This operation by Modul's 9th Army goes nowhere. It stalls with casualties of roughly 20,000 dead in the operation, several hundred lost tanks. They gain about 7 kilometers. One of the ironies of this whole attack, the plan for the Oriole offensive that's going on now against 2nd Panzer Army, the plan assigns a mission to Central Front. The mission is join the attack on the evening of the 22nd. In other words, they're supposed to take all these forces enmeshed in this battle and go over to a counterattack. They will actually mount one on the 13th. It's not very effective. It's somewhat feeble, but they're on the offensive within a day. Any questions about the northern side of the Bulge? Yeah.
Do the Germans have decent intelligence? They're sending the drones up there without knowing what's going on.
The Germans have excellent tactical intelligence. Their tactical intelligence is fairly good to the end of the war, except for one exception, and that is when the Soviets wish to deceive, wish to conceal something, they will conceal it. It's just as simple as that. At Kursk, the Germans have no strategic intelligence. They don't know what's out there in the depth. They do have a good picture of what's in that bulge. They know the units here. They know the units here. And what surprises them is that the units here can stop them. That's the first time that's happened. What they don't know, and won't know for 40 years later, from the 1970s, is what's out there when we look at the southern half, and the attack stalls when it reaches Prokhorovka in a stalemate, and they want to go further. They don't know what's out there. So basically, I'm saying the German intelligence operationally and strategically is lousy, tactically very good.
Do the Germans have their air power in conjunction with their ground attack?
One of the things I've skipped over here for the sake of time is the air. We have the air figures. By the time we get to Kursk, there is air parity, which means that the Germans can obtain air superiority for their initial blow. They can cover the advance of the Panzer Corps here, and when we get to the south, as we will momentarily, they can cover the advance of the 2nd SS Panzer Corps in 48th. But, having said that, once the initial thrust is over and you're 3 or 4 days in, then there is an air battle going on. And it's very, very difficult for the Germans to provide that close air Stuka support that they relied upon before. By the end of the time, by the Battle of Kursk over with, and it's with Soviet definition, in the north, the Oriole, the Germans can't handle the air anymore. It's kind of like late Stalingrad. They throw their hands up in the air because they just don't have the resources to do it anymore. That's a brief answer. It's very you need a book on air power for Kursk.
I have a question about the armor on the ground here. You have a T-34, faster, not as powerful or maneuverable against all the different varieties of heavy weaponry that shoot great distances but slower, break down a lot, don't have repair. How did the Soviets strategy beat a line of
Let me try to hold that question until I get to this Battle of Prokhorovka, because there you're going to see the many tanks. Mistrov commands a tank army that is predominantly T-34s. The German tanks that they have to fear are the new ones, the Panthers, the handful of Tigers, and the Panzer IV is still a reputable tank. As we'll see as we see in the southern, the Germans lose their Panthers on day one. The whole 120 of them go out of action in a swamp because of a thunderstorm. And then they discover they don't work well after that, water in the transmissions and so on. So they're out. This is why 48th Panzer Corps doesn't go where it's supposed to go. The Tigers have been overstressed at Tursk. The Tigers are burning. We had a book by Caden years ago. There weren't many Tigers at Kursk. Model had a lot. If you could read these, you'd see the 505th Panzer Abteilung, or detachment. That's Tiger. It has maybe 20. They get mired down in this fight I've just described. The SS Panzer divisions have a handful each. Tigers aren't burning at Kursk. Now, the story is, if you look at, as I was telling my escort today, Mr. Cam, there's a what is it, E3 something Stuart out there, little Stuart tank outside there, little puddle jumper, and a 1917 vintage. 2 of these Soviet tank brigades have Stuarts. given to them. When I say I've got numbers, I haven't even begun to expose them, but there are 2 tank brigades that have nothing but Stuart tanks, light tanks, recon tanks, 37 millimeter gun, won't shoot anything. I mean, they're hopeless. But they're there, and Soviets don't throw anything away. They've got Stuart, they've got T-60s, T-70 lights, they've got T-34s, a lot of them, they've got KVs and KV-2s. They don't have any T-34-85s yet. Rotmistrow's problem, as we see when we get to Prokhorovka, the night before the 12th, when the Germans are about to begin their advance through the famous poppy fields between the Picel River and the railroad track, with the bulk of Leibstandart and a regiment of Das Reich, about 195 tanks. The word goes out, and those Panzers start rolling northeast toward Prokhorovka. Rotmistrov orders his tank brigades, 9 of them lined up, to charge. They have T-34s. Charge, engage the Germans at close range, go hell for leather, basically, right into the German formations and just fire widely. I mean, it's a chaotic tank battle. Some of the brigades get through, go deep, go into the German rear, then wander around all afternoon before they finally work their way back up again. A lot of the German units, Soviet units, are just flat out destroyed by the Germans. The Germans, if you talk to a German who was there, he says, my God, I never thought saw anything like it. I saw a whole wave of these things coming at me. T-34s, maximum speed. He loses 400 of his tanks on the 12th. And he gets a message from Stalin saying, what have you done to my tank army? What have you done to my beautiful tank army? Well, he has 900 tanks, 3 corps. He only uses 2 at Prokhorovka, the 2 tank corps. But he gets chewed out for losing that many. But it is a shock. I don't care what you say, what the Germans write, it was a shock to the Germans to see this happen. This hadn't been happening before. And they said, yeah, we'll go tomorrow, but they really weren't too happy. And they didn't know that the 4th Guards Tank Corps and the 1st Mech Corps were out there in the rear. If they did, they wouldn't have said that. Besides, Hitler at that point has an invasion going on in Salerno. Just happened. All hell is broken loose at Oriol. His 2nd Panzer Army commander, Schmidt's telling him, I can't hold, I'm going to collapse. You got to give me all the forces you got there at Kursk. There was no way in heck they could continue Kursk. That, I digress, as I always do. Okay, the South. I want to cover this. Any more questions? I don't want to shortcut anybody off. Yeah. What was the Luftwaffe? They were there. First day they were there. Second day they were there. Third day they were there in fewer numbers because the Red Army was there too. And there were lots of dogfights over it. And by the time you get to the 12th, I would say 2nd SS Panzer Corps can call for effective air support for an hour or so at a time, but that's it. And that's not enough to carry a sustained offensive. Oh, jeez. Without any doubt at all, I'll say this right now, without any doubt at all, the most serious flaw in the Wehrmacht. 1941, 1942, I don't care what context is, the most serious constraint was fuel and ammo. Always had it. It limited operations, it curtailed operations, they could never get it up in sufficient quantities, therefore they could never operate in other than fits and starts. The same thing will be at the case of Kursk. The question is, if they had gone through Prokhorovka, you get to Voronezh, where do you go? And besides, you're out of fuel anyway. And if you've got 5 armies out there, we hadn't identified them, what happens if they attack from the north and south? You're putting yourself in a situation a la 6th Army at Stalingrad. And you're doing it over and over and over again because you're doing what you have been congenitally doing since June 22nd. You're trying to do too much with too little and relying on native wit to pull it off, and you can't do that. You simply can't do that. The South. I'm going to go through this quickly, and this is probably the most effective graphic you'll see. I've got good maps on 1 to 50,000 scale with printed up grid lines, the whole schmear. You'll see them on, you'll see replicas here. I've got an atlas of these things. I actually mark it, but you can get Kursk down to the battalion level on this particular side of the conflict. But we aren't going to see that, but we can certainly use what we've got here and get done what we need to get done. Hey, thank you. I was wondering where that went. Okay, here's your German configuration. Classic configuration, 4th Panzer Army, Army Detachment Kempf. 48th Panzer Corps organized around the great big Großdeutschland division. This is the one that will become a corps later. It's always big. It's got the Panther Brigade with it. it might be 200 Panthers. I'm not sure. 200 to 120 to 200, but it's a lot of Panthers. And they're betting a lot on this one. And I will show you one of these detailed maps because I'll show you the precise gully that gets filled up with water that the Panthers run into by accident, and that's the end of them. 48th Panzer Corps, Leibstandart, Das Reich, and Totenkopf. 3rd Panzer Corps, 3 more divisions down here. The problem is that these units are compartmentalized. 3 Panzer Corps should go along parallel axes. That's okay. You see the main rail line here. It runs north this way, goes up to Prokhorovka. 48th Panzer will go this way toward Oboyan in the north. The trouble is, about up to here, they're going to reach the river, a river that's got banks that are too steep to cross. And so they're going to have to suddenly, besides, when they get there, on the other side is 1st Tank Army dug in, which kind of makes things unpleasant. And so they're going to have to divert this way. SS Panzer Corps goes this way, right up the road toward Prokhorovka. But as they go, there's nobody engaging the units over here. There's a river here, the Northern Donets. And they keep getting fire from their right flank. From their, right flank. It's the 2nd and 2nd Guards and 5th Guards Tank Corps that begin attacking. And they don't have any infantry there, so they have to detach big chunks of Totenkopf to watch that flank. Well, as you go deeper, more of Totenkopf is chopped off to look at one flank. There's only the 168th over here. It's too small to do much, so they'll have to chop part of Leibstandart Adolf Hitler to look at the other flank. And you can see what happens over time when you get deeper. Your spearhead gets smaller and smaller and smaller because you don't have the flank protection. And then, of course, 3rd Panzer has to go across the river here, the Northern Donets. It tries to get across here. It doesn't make it. It's too strongly held. They then have to move south and go across here. They lose about 2 days. Finally, they get going this way, and they're separated by Soviet forces from 2nd Panzer Corps. And oh, by the way, they got very heavy forces on their flank and not enough infantry. So as they advance, they've got to take one of their 3 Panzer divisions and give it the onerous duty of watching that flank against counterattacks. As they go deeper, they get weaker. And you can see the story as it progresses. The Soviet defense, 6th Guards Tank Army, 7th Guards Tank Army, 7th Guards Army, 6th Guards Army. These are all Stalingrad armies. They got the Guards honorifics later. Behind that 1st Tank Army up here, 69th Army dug in back here. And behind that, the steppe front, 5th Guards Army, 46th Army, 27th Army, and 5th Guards Tank Army. They don't even show on the map here. Let's see how it develops. Told you I had great graphics. This is the defensive sector of the 67th Guards Rifle Division. This is the front line. The Soviets they classically put something out in no man's land in between. This is an anti-tank regiment out there with some infantry and support. If you squint, you'll see Großdeutschland Division. Here's the axis Großdeutschland. This is a valley right here. The valley has a little stream bed through the middle of it. Guess what it does in July in the southern Soviet Union? It thunderstorms. On the night of 4 or 5 July, about 2 in the morning, they're firing artillery preparations back and forth. But it's a rainstorm, and it fills up this valley right here. And guess what's on the other side of that rainy area? It's a couple of Soviet anti-tank guns. The Panthers, when they advance in the morning, will go right up through that, into that swamp, get stuck under fire, immutably bogged down. It will take them 48 hours to get them out back this way and then put back over on another route headed north again. And from that point on, they have transmission problems and another series of problems, and they're never any factor in this battle. That is one of the reasons why this particular thing falters. Other than that, this is a very nice map, but you can't read it. We're going to stick with the more detailed maps. As far as strength figures, correlation of forces, the heck with that one. You've seen that before. Let me see if there's anything. This is a repeat of the slides I showed you before with greater number. Now, I do want to show you this just for kicks, and that is you can tell exactly what the units had. This is a German one. I'll give you one. One at the top is SS Panzer Division Adolf Hitler. 116 tanks, 7 Panzer IIs, 13 Panzer IIIs, 83 Panzer IVs, 13 Panzer VIs. That's a Tiger, 6s. The one below that is, they've also got 72 assault guns, 21 Martyrs, 35 Stug 3s, 6 Hummels, 12 Wespas, and so on. The only point I'm making here is we got the numbers now. We know what they are, if you could read it. And you can get these things. I've got these things available for anybody who particularly wants to see. This is the interesting one for the Soviet side. This is the tank strength of the Voronezh Front 6th and 7th Guards Armies. 230th Tank Regiment, 39 tanks, 32 M3 Stuarts, 7 M3 Lees, all Lend-Lease. 245th Tank Regiment, 39 tanks, 12 M3 Stuarts, 27 M3 Lees. We get down to 201st Tank Brigade, 7th Guards Army, 52 tanks, 3 T-34s, 18 Mark II Matildas, 31 Mark III Valentines. I'm not sure which one is which, but one of those earns the sobriquet, the coffin for the 7 brothers, because it catches fire instantly when hit by a German tank gun and the whole crew burns up. And I've got the breakdowns, the 27th Guards Tank Brigade, 54 tanks, 4 T-70s, those are modern light tanks, and 50 T-34s. So some of these units are not weak units. And let's take an SP unit. 1438th Self-Propelled Artillery Regiment, 21 Su-76s and 122s. These are the 76, 122, 152 SU guns on the tank carriages. Okay, we know the numbers. The numbers are all there. The only other side I'll burden you with is the one that shows you the correlation for the battlefields at Prokhorovka, so you get an idea of what the real numbers actually were. This is the 5th of July, the first day of the attack. You can see 48th Panzer Corps makes a little finger attack. That's right through the boundary between 2 Soviet rifle divisions. Over here you can see 2nd SS Panzer Corps, a much more sizable gap. It rolls over the 52nd Guards Rifle Division because it's got an immense amount of armor riding forward over a fairly rolling piece of terrain. The reason that the gain here isn't any big is because the Panther tanks are all stuck in the mud and have to be redirected. From this point on, 48th Panzer Corps will have problems, especially when it reaches this line up here, a line of a stream it cannot cross. You notice also there's no action very little action by 3rd Panzer Corps. It could not get across the river opposite Belgorod, had to go further south. The river here is quite wide, and the west bank quite a bit higher than the east bank, as is in the case of most Russian rivers. Let me just show you how it goes. This is the 6th of July, and I'm not going to show you the blow-ups of the various sectors. This is a very intricate battle, and it's in this series of slides the next 5 or 6 days where, in essence, what you will have is you will have Soviet 2nd Guards Tank Corps and 5th Guards Tank Corps attacking this way, basically distracting the 2nd SS Panzer Corps as it advances. The same thing will happen over here with 1st Tank Army dug in. It's 6th Mechanized Corps, it's 6th Tank Corps, it's 31st Tank Corps, and it's Mechanized Corps. The same thing will happen here. And then suddenly you'll see 2 more tank corps, the 2nd and the 10th appear, and they will begin nibbling at both flanks. And as a matter of fact, the first Soviet tanks in the Prokhorovka axis are from these 2 separate tank corps. And it's this battle, more than the actual grinding positional struggle, that will ultimately erode the attacking German forces in this particular venue. th of July, you can begin to see, that the maneuvers going on. You'll see arrows from these units. Overnight, quite literally, the Voronezh Front commander, General Vatutin, will move entire corps around from one flank to the other to keep the fires burning on both of these flanks and give no rest to those corps, in particular 48th Panzer Corps in the west. No rest for the wicked at all. And at this particular juncture, they are running into 1st Tank Army. It's right here. It's dug in. You can see SS Panzer Corps now beginning to make appreciable advances towards Prokhorovka. Prokhorovka is located right here. Because of this German advance, you will see very shortly the 2nd and 10th Tank Corps appearing. They will be the first units to engage the Panzers. And then, very short fashion, you'll see 5th Tank Corps pack up and move completely around to this flank over here to back up 1st Tank Army when it begins to get rolled over by 48th Panzer Corps. So there's a very vital day-by-day, hour-by-hour tank struggle going on here long before we get to Prokhorovka. This is the 8th of July. The feature here, as you can see, 3rd Panzer Corps finally now making its advance northward, but well behind 2nd SS Panzer Corps. And again, the problems are protecting this flank from incessant counterattacks by the Soviets. The same thing here. Here's 2nd Guards Tank Corps, 5th Guards Tank Corps is still up here. I think if you look at the map there, you can see, yeah, 10th Tank Corps and 2nd Tank Corps are coming in right here. Their orders are to strike the nose of SS Panzer Corps and tie it down. They have about 180 tanks each, and they'll be able to keep SS Panzer Corps' attention. Over here, you see a grinding struggle going on. And to make a long story short, I'm not going to stop on it very long, but what happens is that the Panzer divisions accompanying Grossdeutschland, the 3rd, becomes totally bogged down in a fight in its flank. Grossdeutschland, absent its Panther tanks, also becomes bogged down, and the only force that's capable of moving forward is 19th Panzer Division. It tries to break loose along this highway, and if you look at the map and squint, you'll see a whole series of units lined up along that road northward. Those are anti-tank regiments and brigades. And there must be somewhere in the neighborhood of 800 anti-tank guns that are deployed on that axis by the time we get to the 8th and 9th of July. And the Panzer Division, which by this time is down to about 40 or 50 of its original 80 or 90, maybe 100 tanks, it simply can't overcome these things. Again, it's this flank battle going on here, this flank battle going on here, this flank battle going on here, which is eroding the strength of those spearheads as they lunge northward. And notice you haven't seen anything out of the step front yet. This is all Voronezh front stuff. There's no step front units being moved in. The 9th of July, it's beginning to reach the crescendo that it will ultimately reach. By this time, the Panzer Corps down here, 3rd Panzer, is beginning to make slow progress northward. Ultimately, they will be able to squeeze these Soviet units out and link up with 2nd SS Panzer Corps. But by this time, 2nd SS Panzer Corps has such a long flank, it's got very little armor in which it can commit along that Prokhorovka axis. And by now, of course, the 2nd and 10th Tank Corps, they aren't first-line tank corps by any stretch of the imagination, but they are both experienced and blooded corps, and they can, in fact, keep the Germans' attention. This battle over here is becoming more complex. 5th Guards Tank Corps has left. It's over here now. It will be coming in. 10th Tank Corps, when it finishes up here, before the arrival of 5th Guards Tank Army, which is what will come in a day or two, it will be moved over here to reinforce this battle. So the Soviets will keep, throughout this entire fight, a sizable tank force here to tie down 48th Panzer Corps.
Colonel, we see a lot of flexibility on the side of the Soviets.
Yes.
But we don't see any flexibility in terms of the Germans.
And that's true.
In waiting the attack where they had success, or taking 3rd Panzer Corps out and reinforcing.
Two reasons. The configuration of the battlefield, the Germans are operating on interior lines, but they have no reserves. Once a unit's committed, it's committed. You don't withdraw it without replacing it with someone. So unlike the Soviets, who can take these operational reserves, like the 2 tank corps, 5th Guards, and pull it out willy-nilly and move it around, they've got rifle divisions over there and separate tank brigades and regiments. The Germans don't. So they have no flexibility at all for moving units laterally. When we get to Prokhorovka, you'll see an attempt. The night before the 12th, the Germans will try to concentrate all, yeah.
Whose fault is that? Is that Manstein's, 4th Panzer Army, the 3rd Corps?
Maybe it's Hitler's. When you order an offensive with the forces at hand, and the forces aren't capable or aren't numerous enough to fulfill the function, who do you blame? Manstein does the best. I've done Stalingrad, and one of the villains of my 3rd volume is Manstein. Manstein set up Paulus for the fall. I know he lied and lost victories. I have the documents that will prove it, but I can't fault Manstein here. And I don't know what, and incidentally, I don't read lost victories in German. I don't know what the original said, so maybe the translator screwed up the dates. But anyway, I do fault him back there. I do not fault him here. He's operating with what he has. And he may have been a bit optimistic in saying to Hitler, if you let me go, I can go further. That would probably be a mistake, because he had no idea what was out there, as most Germans didn't. Does that answer your question? Okay. Okay. I do have interim slides here that show you the losses, Both sides are suffering losses, as you might expect in something like this. This is the 2200 hours on the 10th of July. We're reaching the culminating point now on this thing, and the big culminating point is not so much what's going on here as it is the appearance of this great big circle up here. That great big circle represents two armies out of the steppe front, General Zhadov's 5th Guards Army and General Rotmistrov's reinforced 5th Guards Tank Army. And their orders are to enter combat and halt the advance of 2nd SS Panzer Corps to the north. Now this is the evening of the 10th. What Manstein and Hoth will try to, or what Manstein, Hoth, and the commander of the 2nd SS Panzer Corps will try to do is they will try to move forces, if they can, from 48th, which is clearly stalled, over to reinforce this unit. They never succeed in doing it because, and it's on these slides, we won't get to it, but what happens over here is the Soviets send in 10th Tank Corps and 5th Guards Tank Corps that have been over here. They attack and put tremendous pressure on 3rd Panzer. 3rd Panzer and Grossdeutschland hold up their arms and say, we can't send anybody, because if we do, we're going to collapse over here. And so that prevents Manstein from reinforcing 2nd SS Panzer Corps. I will add this, when we get up to the Battle of Prokhorovka, 5th Guards Tank Army, when it arrives in that large goose egg up there, takes control of the remnants of 2nd Guards Tank Corps and 2nd Tank Corps. So that will raise its tank strength from some 850 tanks to somewhat over 1,000 altogether on the field of battle. Unlike many of the German units, when 5th Guards Tank Army goes into combat, it will have 2 Guards Airborne Divisions out of 5th Guards Army cooperating with it right up here. In other words, it has infantry to its front with its field guns and its sappers and its support, whereas 2nd SS Panzer Corps is basically tanks and Panzer Grenadiers. Prokhorovka is a beautiful battle, and it's nice to cover it hour by hour, but we're not going to do that for the sake of time. But what I am going to do is show you first this graphic, and then we'll get into the actual counterattack. And it is a rather dramatic morning, the 12th of July. This is an armor correlation, and I think if you squint, you can probably see it. Kursk overall, well, let me give you the numbers, because if you can't see it. The Battle of Kursk by Soviet definition. Soviets, 1,430 tanks, Germans, 646. The correlation is roughly 2.2 to 1. That's on the entire battlefield of Kursk in this particular, in the Voronezh, in the Army Group South sector. The Prokhorovka axis, Soviets, 5th Guards Tank Army, 830 tanks, Germans, 2nd SS Panzer Corps, 293 tanks, Leibstandart Division 77, Das Reich 95, and Totenkopf 121. We know what they are too. Correlation roughly 2.8 to 1 in the Soviets' favor. If you include the southern approach, that's that 3rd Corps down there, which will close up, ultimately will close up with 2nd SS Panzer Corps. You get something like 900 Soviets, 443 German, and the field of Prokhorovka itself, and this is where history has conjured up the 1,200 versus the 1,500. The actual field of Prokhorovka, 450 Soviet, 172 Germans, a correlation of 2.6 to 1. You can actually break it down by divisions. This is a Soviet graphic. It comes out of the Soviet General Staff secret study. This is the counterattack plan, because essentially the meeting engagement at Prokhorovka was a meeting engagement initiated when 5th Guards Tank Army launched its counterstroke. Notice also that it's not just 5th Guards Tank Army, it's also these corps over here. So this is something a lot bigger than just Prokhorovka. Everybody's history's forgotten that too. We have nice, neat German maps. This is taken out of, it's just a gee whiz slide out of one of the Panzer Corps units. I'm not going to show them to you, but here is the actual engagement, Prokhorovka 2, I call it, because the engagement had already occurred there the day before. Essentially, what happens is about 0600 in the morning, the lead elements of Das Reich and Leibstandart Adolf Hitler begin initiating their attack from positions about here. Prokhorovka is kind of fuzzy, it's over here. These are the forward positions of 19th and 29th Tank Corps of 5th Guards Tank Army. Rotmistrov anticipates the German attack and orders his 2 tank corps to conduct a head-on attack with all 6 tank brigades. If you could look at this map, you'd see each of them lined up side by side, each one in company column, attack formation. As the Germans come over the first crest of the hill, heading north across the poppy fields between the railroad line and the Selle River, they see in front of them the tank brigades coming over the ridge, and essentially you end up with a kind of a meeting engagement in the valley. The Soviets break on through. There's a vicious fight. The orders are to close as fast as you can in the German tanks because they do outgun them, and speed is on the Soviet side, so they will go in and attack in packs. Some of the brigades that have orders to go beyond, there are individual orders given to brigades, will go into the German rear area, and you see this one here wandering around quite a ways before it disengages and comes back. It's an all-day battle. It's an all-day battle, and it will culminate in another attack, a separate one up north of the Selle River by SS Totenkopf Division. That's a separate battle, and that's fought by separate units of 5th Guards Tank Army, away from the actual battlefield of Prokhorovka itself. I'm not going to get into the day-by-day blow, but I will show you the results. The battle is a draw. It will go on the next day. The overall position on the 15th of July looks like this. But what this doesn't tell you on the 15th is that by now we are 3 days into a Soviet offensive against Oryol, and the German front of 2nd Panzer Army is gone northeast of Oryol, and it's gone east of Oryol. And the commander of 2nd Panzer Army, Schmidt, is calling for help and saying we've got to have actually, matter of fact, Grossdeutschland comes out post haste and is sent north to try to restore the situation. So it's all hell is breaking loose elsewhere. There is every reason in the world for Hitler to say, no, might not continue on here. And if you want to ask the question, should he have continued on, then of course you get into this question. This is a Soviet map, and these are all forces that have been maneuvering to the rear and are sitting back there waiting for whatever decides to come out of the Prokhorovka area to come out. We do know the losses. I'm not going to show them to you, except for the bottom line here. 5th Guards Tank Army goes into the battle with 808 tanks, commits 642, loses 340, comes out on the 13th of July with 399. The next evening, by repair, they're up to 458 again. Again, for illustrative purposes, I can do the same thing with the Germans, I think. Yes. Nope. We've got lots and lots of numbers. If you buy the new book by Zamulin, you'll find out all these figures, and they're probably even better than mine. The Germans lose about half of their tank strength in this particular operation. Now, I want to show you to finish up here what should be shown in any presentation of Kursk, because it is the end of the story. The story does not end on the 12th of July. That is the 12th of July right there. There is a big markup. You can see where the Battle of Kursk is. You can see where the Oryol salient is. Now let's take that one step further. That's the 12th of July. Here's a blow-up. It's a Soviet map. I haven't translated it, of the battle for Oryol. You can see the various phases and attacks, and it's a very complicated, very vicious fight. Question? Right. Okay, yep. That's good. We'll wrap it up. Yep. 21st of July. Just watch what happens to this up here. The Oryol salient. It's about half gone now. 4th of August. Oryol salient's almost totally gone. This is the front back here in the south. Here comes your Soviet Belgorod-Kharkov offensive right here. And if you carry it out to the 28th of August, it will be the end of the Battle of Kursk by Soviet definition. That's it right there. All the salients are gone. The whole thing is flattened off. And if you carry it one step further, this is the rest of the campaign that began with Kursk and will finish in the fall. It essentially drives the Germans back beyond the Dnieper River. And that's another whole story. Any questions at all before we wrap it up? And if you have any and want to stick around, I'll be here as long as you folks want to be here to answer anything you've got.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me just say that that's exactly what we're going to do. We know it's gone on quite a bit, but I know some of you are very interested in asking some questions. So David has graciously offered to stay. Those that would like to go, please do so. And please give a round of applause for David Glenn. Now, we don't offer much here when we do these on the night, but we do offer our slight token of gratitude, a water bottle with the First Division Museum logo on the front of it for you.
That is very nice. I have a Guard's whiskey flask a Russian gave me. I'll put it side by side.
And if anyone has any spare change or something they would like to help out, the American Legion post here at Cantini, post 556, is collecting for the Wheaton Shelter for Homeless Veterans. So please donate generously. Thank you very much. Good night.
I will stay right here for anybody that wants to answer a question as long as...
I'll also bring you a chair in case anyone wants their book signed.
Oh, yeah, sure. And if you have books signed, I'll be happy to do that too.
Question, two questions.
Yeah.